Looking back at 2017, the tumultuous nature of the Trump administration and its ties to Colorado had made the most headlines. From travel bans to kneeling athletes, President Trump kept all of us talking throughout the year. The administration's policy regarding sanctuary cities put Denver squarely in the crosshairs of federal officials as well. Patty, there's a lot to go from here, but when we start with just the keeping up with the Trump administration and everything that had to do straight to Colorado. It wasn't just national issues. It was coming to our doorstep, both the city of Denver, the city of Aurora, talking about sanctuary cities. What did you think about all the different things we tackled this year regarding the Trump administration?
Well, first of all, I'm relieved that we're still here, because I'm not sure at this time last year I would have predicted we were. And we still do have 2 weeks really before the end of the year from when we're taping this. So depending on North Korea, we might not still be here by the end of the year. But I'm relieved by that. A little surprised that Trump is still in office for whatever reason. I think I would have predicted he might have been gone for some reason, boredom, whatever, by now. I think the most interesting thing, besides, the sanctuary city is not a surprise that he was going to go for that. The fact that Jeff Sessions keeps making threats against states' rights and marijuana, that's not a big surprise either. I think the really big surprise of this year was the uprising of women. When you look at the protests after the inauguration last year and the wave of women's marches across the country that were 5-10 times bigger than anyone anticipated, certainly here in Denver, where it was over 100,000 people. And we've seen that wave continue all year, up through Time Magazine choosing the women who are speaking out as their Person of the Year. People have gotten a lot more organized, some people, about how they want to respond to what's going on in Washington, D.C., what they would like to see happen in Washington, D.C., and where we're going to go from here.
David, you are the table's by far most esteemed historian, one of our two lawyers, but you've spoken well about history throughout your time here at the table. Our reaction this year to the Trump administration, a lot of things we've seen even locally, has been like, well, it's never been like this before. This is a crazy pace. And it may very well have. But from your knowledge of other administrations, is this really that much different than other administrations have been? Or are we just sensitive to it because of what our political state is right now in this country?
I think we're more, well, Trump is an unusual character. He's obviously the first president elected who had no prior experience in any form of government, including even military service. And his personality and frequent lapses into lack of self-control make it different. But when you're in a world where everything is just what's in front of you on your cell phone, that in a way can broaden you in how you get information, but it also can very narrow you into being just in the present. You know, this is the problem that animals have, is like a dog is very aware of what's going on now, but not usually so good at planning for the future. And we're descending to that level in some degree. You know, it's just the stimulus of the moment that's going on. A lot of Trump's, if you take away the tweets and the comments and all this other stuff, lots of the policies that the Trump administration is doing are what you would expect from a normal Republican president. Of course, people can, agree or disagree with that, but that's well within the normal range. One of the surprising things has been, I think people in 2016 had some genuine sort of fears about fascistic tendencies. But what the administration has actually done has been very good in restoring the rule of law, in putting federal agencies back under, we have a governing statute, we're going to try to obey this most of the time and not go beyond it. In terms of, for all of Trump's, tweeting and anger about the press and his personal animosity about CNN and all those things, Trump has treated legally the press a lot better compared to what Obama did, with spying on members of the press, breaking into the computer of Cheryl Atkinson, a reporter for CBS News, their campaign against James Rosen. He's been surprisingly good compared to what one might have expected on civil liberties issues.
Eric, I remember one of the comments you made earlier this year was talking about, can the energy and I think frenzied nature of what we were seeing, especially in the very beginning of the Trump administration, can that be sustained? And I'm not sure if it has been completely sustained, but it doesn't feel like it's slowing down all that much. What do you feel about the frenzied nature from January to now? Are we just getting used to a new speed, or did it slow down?
Good question. I think we're more used to it. I think I run into an increasing number of people who are forcing themselves to pace themselves, to tune out for periods of time, because you can't keep up this level of intensity for a year or for 4 years. In your question, Dominic, I mean, I think the question answered itself. You had a line in the question, President Trump kept all of us talking throughout the year. I think that's his mission in life. I think the guy is a textbook narcissist. Whatever you make of him on a policy level or any other level, I think he is a textbook narcissist. I think he gets out of bed in the morning more worried about how do I dominate this news cycle? How do I make sure every panel, television panel like this around the country, every Thanksgiving or Christmas table around the country is talking about me, every dinner table on a nightly basis. And he's a master at doing that. To David's point, which I agree with, at least the specific point of, from a policy and personnel point of view, the Trump administration is not wholly different than any other typical Republican administration. But you cannot divorce the man from the administration, and you cannot divorce the tweets and the animosity and the constant upheaval that sort of follows in his wake. And that is the worrisome piece. This country, whether you're liberal or conservative, it yings and yangs between Democratic administrations and Republican administrations, and has shown staying power to withstand both. The issue isn't that we're having a dose of conservatism, although what it means to be a conservative these days, that definition has certainly changed, or that there's a battle going on within the conservative movement as Donald Trump is redefining it. But it's the man who is disturbing, not the administration. It's the man who is keeping people up at night. It's the man who has created this sort of frenzied media cycle.
Penn, it seems one of the byproducts of the frenzied nature, one way or the other, is it has woken a lot of people up, a lot of energy in various protests, organizations, something has responded. Is that a byproduct we see all the time, or is it because of this particular energy in this particular administration?
What we're seeing is unique to this person and this time. The reality is this. Think about the context. We're at a time where there are investigations underway to try to determine if the currently seated President of the United States and his campaign conspired with a foreign government to steal an election. You don't have to lose a war if you conspire with your enemy and give them control of your government. That's the fundamental context in which we're operating now. And so people are pacing themselves because we're damned by reduced expectations. You got to sit here and think, can it get a whole lot worse than this? That the president and his campaign really conspire with Russia to steal an election? Then on top of that, you have a president sort of living out what I often talk about. Sometimes how you treat people is more important than what you do. His stock and trade is treating everybody horrifically. Everybody. And even his allies, he'll throw them under the bus and then back up and hit them again. And if he needs them, he'll prop them up and say something nice about me. And so he's self-absorbed, self-obsessed, and I fundamentally don't think, and you can't convince me, he's really concerned about the country. He's more concerned about his own perception within the country and on the international stage. Policy be damned. And so you can say that some of his policies are traditional Republican policies. If Lindsey Graham and John McCain are calling you out on a regular basis, these aren't traditional Republican policies. We have gone severely off kilter. And to Patty's point, I'm surprised we're still here a year in. But we got 2 weeks left to go. So there's no telling what can happen between now and then. But it's pretty awful. It's pretty awful.